Hiya, today I want to go through why is MRP equal to a demand curve for labor. So let's start with some basics. First of all, here is a demand curve. I've got the prices and the quantity demanded plotted. So at price 4, for example, the quantity demanded is 1. At price 3, the quantity demanded is 2. And at price 2, the quantity demanded is 3. And so on. And that's just your normal demand curve. And here's the definitions of demand. There are two ways I could define a demand curve. The first one, a demand curve is the maximum quantity that a consumer is willing and able to buy at each price. So a demand curve could be defined in terms of that. So it could be defined as the maximum quantity that a consumer is willing and able to buy at each price. So here at price 2, the maximum quantity that a consumer is willing and able to buy is 3. So that's the first way to define a demand curve. But the one that I'm going to use for this video is the different version of the same way to define a demand curve. So we're going to look at the second way to define a demand curve. And that one is the maximum price that a consumer is willing and able to pay for a given quantity. So for example, to have 2 quantity, a demand curve also shows the maximum. So the maximum that a consumer is willing to pay, 3. So that's another way to define it. So quantity 2 shows that at a maximum a consumer is willing to pay 3. And again, to get quantity 3, at the maximum a consumer is willing and able to pay 2. So we're going to use that second definition to help us out with this MRP. So here I've changed the definition just a little bit. So we're now applying this to a labor market situation. We have the demand curve for labor is the maximum that firms are willing and able to pay for each unit of labor. So take a look at this table. Here I've got all these different employees, employee 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And a demand curve is going to show the maximum that the firm is going to be willing and able to pay for them. And the maximum that they are willing and able to pay turns out to be their MRP. MRP is the revenue that can be generated from this new employee. So at the most, the firm is going to be willing to pay them their MRP. So here we have employee 1 has an MRP of 180. And so at the most, the firm is going to be willing to pay them 180 at the most. So I'm going to put that on the graph. The firm is willing and able to pay them a wage of 180. The second employee brings in 200 to the company. So at the most, the company is willing to pay 200 for them. So unit 2, I'm looking to put a dot at 200. That would be at the most the wage that the firm can pay them. And let's repeat. At the most 150. At the most 100 and at the most 50. Let's plot them. So worker 3 at the most, the firm can pay 150. 4 at the most, the firm can pay 100. And 5, the firm can pay at the most 50. And here, now I'm just plotting a demand curve because I have plot the most that a firm is willing and able to pay for each quantity of labor. And we've discussed that's what a demand curve is. So here the demand curve is that yellow line, but it turns out to be in the same exact location as an MRP curve drawn with the employees. So that's why we say that these curves are equal. They literally are in the same place, and that's because the firm is willing and able to pay each labor at the most their MRP. So the wage is going to equal their MRP when you ask the firm what are they most willing and able to pay. Okay, so that's it. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much. Bye.